The clock above the whiteboard in year 3 reads 2:47, and Yasmin is on her knees beside Amir's chair, tying the lace of his left trainer, because he has, again, tried to tie it himself and made it into the kind of knot that is going to need scissors before bedtime. And Amir is telling her about a dog he saw at the bus stop this morning that had only one ear, and the classroom smells of the paint they used in the afternoon's art lesson, and of the orange Mrs. Pritchard has half peeled at her desk, and the light through the high windows is the flat gray of a Stoke afternoon in late October. And there are 30 children in the room, and the noise is exactly the noise of 30 children at 2:47 in the afternoon, and nothing about any of this is wrong. And Yasmin knows, and in the way you know a thing in your chest before you know it in your head, that something today is not going to go the way Wednesdays go. She finishes the lace. She pats Amir's foot. She says, "Right, you." Pencils away. Amir says, "Miss, what time is home?" She says, 3:30, sweetheart, same as every day. Amir says, "Is it 3:30 for me as well?" She looks at him. He is 7. He is in the blue cardigan his mother sent him in this morning, the one with the missing second button that his mother has been meaning to fix for 3 weeks. He is looking up at her with the slightly worried expression he uses when he is asking a question he has been told not to ask. Yasmin has seen that expression on him perhaps 4 times in the year he has been in her class. The first time was when he asked her in February on whether his nanny was going to die before Eid. The second was in May, when he asked her if she thought his father liked his brother better. She says carefully, "Yes, sweetheart, 3:30 for you as well." Why wouldn't it be? Amir says, "Miss Pritchard said I was on the late list." Yasmin's stomach does a small clean drop, like missing a step. She does not let it show. She says, "Did she now?" Amir says, "She said I was on the late list and not to worry about it." Yasmin straightens up. She glances at Joe Pritchard, who is the class teacher, who is 38, who has worked at the school for 11 years, who is currently bent over her desk, peeling her orange and pretending not to have heard. Joe's shoulders are too still. Joe's shoulders, when Joe has not heard a thing, move with her breathing in a way they are not moving now, as Yasmin says lightly to the room. "Right, year 3, pencils away please, books in the tray, coats on pegs check, water bottles check, lunch boxes check. 2 minutes. Amir, come and help me with the tray, would you?" Amir comes. He is a tidy child, and he likes being asked. Yasmin walks him slowly to the tray at the back of the room, taking the long way so that she passes Joe's desk. As she passes, she says, in the cheerful voice she uses for parents, "Joe, can I borrow you for a sec when the kids are out, just about the trip forms?" Joe, without looking up, says, "I'll be busy, Yas, after 3:20? Yasmin says, 5 minutes. Joe says, "I can't, love, I really can't." After 3:20? Yasmin says, "Okay." She does not say what she wants to say, which is, "Joe, what is the late list?" She wants to ask in a way that is not in front of Amir. She wants to ask also in a way that does not commit her to having heard it, in case there is a way of not having heard it. She has worked at this school for 4 years. She has been a teaching assistant in 3 different classrooms with 3 different teachers, and she has not, in 4 years, encountered a late list, except for the after-school club list, which is on a clipboard by the front office, which any parent can sign their child onto, which is run by Mrs. Begum, which costs £4 a session, and which Amir is not on because Amir's mother has told Yasmin 3 times that they cannot afford after-school club, that Amir is collected at 3:35 by his Auntie Saima, who works at the chemist's on Harts Hill Road, and finishes at 3:30, and that the arrangement has not changed. At Joe's desk, Jo finishes the last segment of her orange, wraps the peel in a piece of kitchen roll, and drops it neatly into the bin. She has not looked at Yasmin since Yasmin came over. Amir, at the tray, is sliding his book into the right slot. Yasmin stands over him for a moment with her hand on his head, lightly, in a way that he tolerates because he likes her, and she says quietly, "Amir, who told you you were on the late list?" Amir says, "Miss Pritchard?" "When, sweetheart?" "At register." "This morning's register?" "Yes, miss." "What did she say exactly?" "Can you remember?" Amir thinks. He has the very serious face he uses when he is trying to be accurate, because Yasmin has, over a year, trained him gently to value accuracy. He says, "She said, 'Amir, you're on the late list today. Don't worry about it. Your mom knows.'" Yasmin nods. She says, "Thank you. That's helpful." She walks to her own desk at the side of the room. She sits down. She opens the class register on the laptop. The register is electronic, has been for 2 years, and Jo took the morning register at 8:50, as Jo always does, on the laptop. Yasmin scrolls to today, October the 23rd, year 3. Amir's name, present, no note, no flag, no annotation. The system has a free text box for notes, early collection, dental appointment, parent contact required, and the box is empty. She opens the school's shared collection list, which is the document that records any deviation from a child's normal home time arrangement. The list is updated daily by the office. Today's list has 4 entries. A girl in year 1 being collected by an uncle at 3. A boy in year 5 going to the dental hospital at 2:30. A girl in year 6 staying for choir. A boy in reception going home with another reception family because of an emergency at his mother's work. Amir is not on it. There is no field on the list called Late List. There is no document called Late List in the shared folder. Yasmin searches the shared drive. Nothing. She closes the laptop. She looks across at Jo. Jo is now standing at the front of the classroom, telling the children, in her ordinary brisk teacher's voice, that they have done well today, and that she is very pleased with the leaf collages, and that everybody is to push their chairs in and walk, please, Tyler, to the coat pegs. Tyler walks. Jo's voice is exactly her voice. Her hands, and when she puts the board pen back in the tray, are steady. Yasmin watches Jo's hands. She has known Jo Pritchard for 4 years. She has had cups of tea in Jo's kitchen. She has met Jo's husband Dan, who fits kitchens, and Jo's son Marcus, who is 16 and rude in the way 16-year-olds are rude, and Jo's mother briefly, at the summer fair last year. Jo is the closest thing to a friend Yasmin has at this school, although Yasmin would not, if pressed, call her a friend. She would call her, accurately, the person she trusts most in this building. Jo's hands are steady. Jo is not looking at her. The end-of-day routine takes 7 minutes. By 2:56, the children are at their pegs. By 2:58, they are lined up at the door. Jo does the lining up. Tallest at the back, quietest at the front. The usual gentle rejigging. Amir is third from the front, because Amir is small and quiet. He is looking at Yasmin over his shoulder. Yasmin gives him a smile that she practices sometimes in the staff toilets, the smile that is fully professional, fully reassuring, and fully unreadable. He turns back. At 2:59, Jo opens the classroom door and walks the line out into the corridor. And the corridor is loud because every other year group is doing the same thing. And the smell in the corridor is wet wool and chips from the dinner hall ovens, which are being cleaned for tomorrow. And the floor is being swept at the far end by Mr. Adebayo, the caretaker, who waves at Amir as the line goes past. And Yasmin walks at the back of the line as she does every day. And at the doors to the playground at 3:01, Joe stops the line and says, brightly, "Right. Year 3. I'm off you pop. Eyes up for your grown-ups. See you tomorrow." The children spill out. Yasmin scans the railings for Saima, Amir's auntie. Saima is usually one of the first parents on the railings because the chemist's is 2 streets away. Today, Saima is not on the railings. The playground is full of parents in the way it is full every day at 301. 140 parents pressed against the green metal railings, prams, dogs on leads, the rain just beginning to think about starting, the noise of greeting, the small dramatic reunions of children with mothers as if they have been apart for a year. Yasmin's eyes go through the crowd in the methodical way she does this every day, starting at the gate, sweeping left along the railings, looking for the specific people for the specific children in her class. Saima is not there. Amir's mother, Hina, who works mornings at the care home on Prince's Road, is also sometimes at the railings on Wednesdays, because Wednesdays she finishes at 2. Hina is not there either. Amir is standing on the playground in his blue cardigan, 2 feet from Yasmin, looking at the railings. He is not crying. He is doing the thing he does, which is going still, the way a small animal goes still when it does not know what is being decided about it. Joe says, from beside Yasmin, in her ordinary teacher's voice, "Amir's auntie's running late, love. He's on the late list today. I'll take him in." Yasmin says, "Joe, I'll text Hina, 2 seconds." Joe says, "Yas, it's been arranged, it's fine." Yasmin takes her phone out of her cardigan pocket. She has Hina's number because she has had it since the parent-teacher evening last November, when Hina cried in the corridor and Yasmin gave her a tissue and her phone number, which she is not strictly supposed to do, but which she did, because Hina was in the corridor in the dark crying, because she had been told her son's reading was 18 months behind, and she had thought it was on track, and Yasmin had spent 4 months on his reading without telling Hina, because she had not wanted Hina to know how far behind he had been, because she had wanted to fix it first, and she had fixed most of it, but not all, and the parent evening had been the wrong time to find out. Yasmin opens the thread. The last message from Hina was on Monday, a thumbs-up emoji in response to Yasmin saying Amir had read a whole page out loud without help. Yasmin types, "Hi Hina, just checking. Is Saima still picking up Amir at 3:35 today? He's waiting and she's not here yet. No worries, just want to confirm at XX." She presses send. The phone says delivered. It does not say read. Joe says, "Yas, he's on the late list." Yasmin says, "Joe, can I have a word?" She says it quietly. She says it in the voice she has not used at this school before. Joe looks at her properly for the first time since Amir's lace, and there is something in Joe's face that Yasmin does not, at first, recognize, and then does. It is the face of a person who is going to ask you, in a moment, to do something for them that they have already decided you are going to do. Joe says, 2 minutes. She turns to Amir, who has not moved, and says, "Amir, sweetheart, come and stand by the door with me. We'll wait for Auntie inside." Amir says, "Miss Akhtar, can I wait with you?" Yasmin says, "Yes." Joe says, "Yes." Yasmin says, "Yes, he can wait with me, Joe. He's 7 and his auntie's late, and he wants me. He can wait with me." Joe's mouth does something complicated. She says, "All right, come and find me in the staff room when she's collected." Yasmin says, "All right." Joe walks back across the playground toward the school doors. She does not look back. Yasmin watches her go. She watches the angle of Joe's shoulders, which is now wrong in a different way, an angle Yasmin would call, if she had to name it, relieved. Joe is relieved. Joe has handed Amir back. Yasmin has, without intending to, taken him. She crouches down in front of Amir. She says, Amir, listen to me. I'm going to phone your mom. I want you to stand right here by my elbow and not move. Okay? Like a statue. Amir says, will Miss Pritchard be cross? Yasmin says, no. Oh, sweetheart, no one will be cross with you. I promise. She rings Hina. The phone rings out. It goes to voicemail, which is the standard automated voicemail in English. The person you are calling is unavailable, and the beep, and Yasmin says, Hina, it's Yasmin Akhtar from school. Can you give me a ring back as soon as you get this, please? It's about Amir. Nothing to worry about. Just want a quick word. Thank you. Bye. She hangs up. She rings again. Voicemail. She tries Saima. She does not have Saima's mobile, but she has the chemist's landline, because last term, Amir had a temperature, and Saima had not picked up her mobile, and Yasmin had rung the chemist's. The chemist's number is in her recents. She rings. A woman answers, Harts Hill Pharmacy, Bushra speaking. Yasmin says, Hi Bushra, it's Yasmin Akhtar from Greenfield Primary. Is Saima there, please? Bushra says, Saima's on her break, love. Is it about Amir? Yasmin says, yes. Bushra says, she's just gone for him, hasn't she? She left at 3 exactly. Yasmin says, she's not here yet, Bushra. She's not at the gates. Bushra says, oh, hang on, love. There is a noise of a phone being put down on a counter. There is the noise distantly of a pharmacy, a beep of a till, a woman asking about a prescription, the door chime. Yasmin watches Amir at her elbow, watching a sparrow on the railing. Bushra comes back. Bushra says in a different voice, the voice people use when they're trying to be careful. Yasmin, her coat's still here. Her bag's still here. Her phone's on the counter. She must have stepped out, but she wouldn't go for Amir without her phone. She wouldn't go for Amir without her coat. It's spitting. Yasmin says, right. Bushra says, I'll have a look out the front. Hang on. There is the noise of a door. There is a long pause. There is the noise of the door again. Bushra comes back. Bushra says, she's not in the street. She's not in the back. Her car's still in the staff bay. Yasmin, I don't know where she is. She said, I'm popping for Amir, and she went out front, and that's the last I saw of her. That was about 3:10, 8 minutes ago. The playground is emptier now. There are perhaps 15 children left, each with a hand in a parent's hand, drifting toward the gates. Mr. Adebayo has come out and is doing his slow caretaker's round of the bins. The clock on the wall above the doors says 3:11. Yasmin says, Bushra, could you ring me back if she turns up? This is my mobile. Bushra says, of course. Yasmin, is there anything I should do? Yasmin says, not yet. Thank you. She hangs up. She stands. She looks at Amir, who has noticed nothing, who is now looking at a different sparrow. She walks Amir to the school doors. She walks him through the corridor, past Mr. Adebayo, who says, all right, Amir. And Amir says, all right, Mr. Adebayo. And they go past the front office where Mrs. Begum is on the phone, and Yasmin nods at Mrs. Begum, who nods back, and they go down the corridor to the staff room. And Yasmin says to Amir at the staff room door, sweetheart, I need you to sit on the chair right here outside this door, and I need you to read your reading book to yourself for 2 minutes. Can you do that for me? Amir says, yes, miss. She sits him down. She gives him the reading book from his book bag. She says, 2 minutes. I'll be just on the other side of this door. If you need me, you knock. He nods. She opens the staff room door. The staff room smells of instant coffee and the radiator. There are 3 people in it. Joe Pritchard, sitting on the low chair by the window, her hands round a mug. Mrs. Begum's deputy, Helen, at the kettle. And Mr. Cartwright, the head teacher, 61 years old, 22 years at the school, standing by the notice board with a folder in his hand. When Yasmin comes in, all three of them look at her, and all three of them stop talking, and the cessation of their talking is one piece. The way it is when you walk into a room people have been talking about you in. Mr. Cartwright says in his gentle headmaster's voice, "Yasmin, have a seat?" Yasmin does not have a seat. She says, "Mr. Cartwright, where is Saima Begum?" Mr. Cartwright says, "Yasmin, please sit down." Yasmin says, "Mr. Cartwright, where is Saima Begum? She left the chemist's at 3:10 to come and collect Amir. She didn't bring her coat. She didn't bring her phone. She is not at the railings. Her sister, Amir's mother, is also not answering. Amir says Joe told him at register that he was on the late list. There is no late list on the system. Amir is sitting outside this door. Where is Saima Begum?" Helen, at the kettle, has gone very still in the way Joe's shoulders were still earlier. Mr. Cartwright says, "Yasmin, I understand you're concerned. Please sit down. Let me explain." Yasmin says, "Explain what?" Mr. Cartwright says, "Amir is on the late list today. We don't usually involve TEAs in the late list. It's something Joe and I and Helen and a few of the longer-serving staff. It's something we manage between ourselves. It's been managed for a long time. There is nothing to be alarmed about. Saima will arrive. She will arrive, Yasmin. The late list resolves itself." Yasmin says, "What is the late list?" Mr. Cartwright says, "It's the school's old timetable, Yasmin." He says it kindly. He says it with the slight regret of a man giving a child a piece of information the child has reached the age of being given. Yasmin can see, looking at him, that he is telling her the truth. She can also see that he believes the truth he is telling her is manageable, has been managed by him and by Helen and by Joe for a long time, and that he believes she will, once she sits down, understand. She does not sit down. She says, "No, the school's old timetable." Mr. Cartwright says, "There used to be a separate end of day for certain children. Some of them stayed later. Some of them went home at 3:17 rather than 3:30. It was, Yasmin, this school was a board school. It was here before the council. There were arrangements. The arrangements went onto the timetable. The timetable, it doesn't entirely. When we changed to comprehensive end of day, the timetable didn't entirely come with us. It still runs in parts of the building. It still calls certain children. We've found over the years that if we list the children who would have been called, and if we make sure those children are accounted for between 3:17 and 3:25, the timetable settles. Amir's name came up on the list this morning, and Joe told him at register because Joe always tells them gently, so they aren't frightened. Saima will come. She will come at 3:25 or thereabouts, and she will be a little confused about what she has been doing for the missing 15 minutes, and Amir will go home with her, and that will be that. We have done this since before I was here, Yasmin. I inherited the practice from Mrs. Coyle, who inherited it from her predecessor. It is not anything to alarm you. Please sit down." Yasmin says, "What happens if you don't account for the child?" Mr. Cartwright looks at Helen. Helen looks at the kettle. Mr. Cartwright says, "Yasmin, I think the helpful question is," Yasmin says, "What happens if you don't account for the child?" Joe, from the low chair by the window, says, "Yes, please." Joe's voice cracks slightly on the please. Yasmin looks at Joe. Joe is crying, in the small, quiet way of a woman who has been carrying a thing for a long time, and is going to keep carrying it. Joe says, we always account for them. We always, yes, we always account for them. I have done this for 11 years. We always account for them. Yasmin says, what happens if you don't, Joe? Joe says, we don't not, Yas. We don't not. Yasmin says, Saima isn't here. Saima isn't here, Joe. Saima left her phone on the counter and walked out without her coat. And she isn't here. And you put my Amir on the list. You put Amir on the list. And his auntie isn't here. You can't account for him with someone who isn't here. Helen says, very quietly, looking at the kettle, Saima will arrive. Yasmin says, where is she? Helen says, she will arrive. Yasmin says, where is she right now, Helen? Helen does not answer. Yasmin turns to Mr. Cartwright. She says, Mr. Cartwright, I am going to take Amir. I am going to walk him to the chemist's, and I am going to find his auntie. I am going to ring his mother on the way. If I cannot reach his mother by 3:20, I am going to ring the police. I am telling you this so that you understand that I am not on this list with you. I am not on it. I have never been on it. I am taking him out. Mr. Cartwright says, Yasmin, if you take him out before 3:25, the list will. Yasmin, I have to ask you to trust me. I am asking you. We have done this for 40 years. Yasmin says, have you ever not? Mr. Cartwright says, Yasmin. Yasmin says, have you ever in 40 years once not accounted for one of them? And have you ever had one where the auntie didn't arrive? Where the mum didn't arrive? Where someone walked out of the chemist's without her coat and her phone and didn't come back? Mr. Cartwright is silent. Joe from the chair says, Yas. Yasmin says, how many? Joe says, Yas, please. Yasmin says, Joe, how many? Joe says, 2. In 11 years. 2. Yasmin says, and the children? Joe does not answer. Yasmin says, and the children, Joe? Joe says, they go home. They go home, Yas. They walk home. They, Mr. Cartwright, please. Mr. Cartwright says, very gently, they go home, Yasmin. They are at home that evening. Their mothers do not afterward entirely remember the period between 3 and 3:30. There is a settling. The children come back to school the next day. They are quieter for a while, and they are not harmed, Yasmin. We do not believe they are harmed. Yasmin says, you don't believe. Mr. Cartwright says, Yasmin. Yasmin says, you don't believe they are harmed. She notices, not shaking. She has not raised her voice. She is having, in the back of her mind, a feeling that she will later identify as the feeling of a door closing behind her in a building she is never going to be allowed back into, and a smaller, brighter feeling underneath it, which is the feeling of being absolutely certain about a thing for the first time in her adult life. She says, Mr. Cartwright, I will be ringing the police at 3:20 from the chemist's, with Amir beside me, with Saima found or not found. I will be ringing Amir's mother now. I will be ringing the local paper this evening. I will be ringing the diocese tomorrow morning, and the council, and the safeguarding lead at the L.A., whose name I have because we did the training in September. I am telling you this because I want you to have the time to decide what you are going to do. I am going to my car. I am taking Amir. Do not follow me out of this room before I have left the building. Do not speak to him as I take him out. Do you understand? Mr. Cartwright says, Yasmin. Yasmin says, do you understand? Mr. Cartwright, after a moment, says, yes. Joe stands up. Joe says, Yas, let me come with you. Let me. Yasmin says, no, Joe. Joe says, Yas, please, let me. Yasmin says, no, you stay. You and Helen and Mr. Cartwright stay in this room. You stay where you have been for 11 years. I am taking him out. Jo sits down again, and her face has gone the color of paper. She is looking at Yasmin, the way Yasmin imagines she has, over years, looked at children, with something that is partly love and partly the recognition that what is happening to them is going to keep happening, and that she has not stopped it, and that there is a moment with each one when she could have, and that she did not. Yasmin opens the staff room door. She steps out. Amir is sitting on the chair with his reading book open on his lap. He looks up at her. She smiles at him. She says, "Right, you. Coat on. Auntie's running late. I'm going to give you a lift to the chemist's so we can meet her there. Bag, please. Reading book in the bag." Amir says, "Are you allowed, miss?" Yasmin says, "Yes, sweetheart. Mr. Cartwright's just said." "I'm allowed." He puts his book in his bag. He stands until he puts his hand in hers because he is 7 and tired and his auntie isn't there. And Yasmin takes it. The corridor to the front doors is empty. The clock above the office reads 3:14. Mrs. Begum is no longer at the office. The office is dark. Yasmin walks Amir to the front doors, signs them out in the visitor's book in the foyer. Akhtar, Y, and Begum, A, 1514, walking to Harts Hill Pharmacy, and pushes through the doors into the car park. It is spitting. The car park has 6 staff cars on it and a row of bins. Yasmin's car is the silver Fiesta in the corner. She walks Amir to it. She unlocks it. She puts him in the back because he is too small for the front, and she fastens his seatbelt for him because he is tired and his fingers are cold. And she shuts the door, and she walks round to the driver's side, and she gets in. Oh, her phone on the passenger seat where she left it, because she had not, in the playground, put it back in her pocket, is ringing. It is Hina. She answers. She says, "Hina." Hina says, "Yasmin, I'm sorry, love, I missed your call. I was sitting down for a minute. I think I dropped off. I don't. Sima's not picked him up." Yasmin says, "Hina, listen to me. I've got Amir. He's in my car. He's safe. I'm driving him to the chemist's now to find Sima. I'll explain when I see you. Can you meet me at the chemist's?" Hina says, "Yasmin, what's happened?" Yasmin says, "He's safe, Hina. He's safe and he's with me. Meet me at the chemist's." Hina says, "Yasmin." Yasmin says, "Hina, I'll explain. Get in the car, get a taxi. Meet me at the chemist's. Now." Hina, after a beat, says, Right, I'm coming." Yasmin hangs up. She puts the phone in the cradle. She starts the engine. The car's dashboard clock comes on. It reads briefly before settling 3:16, then 3:17. For 1 second. And Yasmin will later try to be honest with herself about whether it was 1 second, or whether it was less, or whether it was nothing at all. She hears, from the direction of the school, a bell. Not the school's bell, which is electronic, which is a buzzer, an older sound, the sound of a handbell, a small brass thing being shaken, the kind of bell a teacher used to walk into a yard with. It is faint. It is the right distance for the playground. It rings twice and stops. Amir in the back says, "Miss, what was that?" Yasmin says, "I didn't hear anything, sweetheart." She looks at him in the rearview mirror. He is looking out of the window toward the school. He says, "I thought I heard the bell." Yasmin says, "There's no bell, sweetheart. School's finished." She puts the car in gear. She pulls out of the staff parking bay. She drives carefully at 15 miles an hour out of the school car park onto Lonsdale Street, and she turns left, and she does not look back, although she sees in the wing mirror Mr. Cartwright standing in the doorway of the school, watching her go, with his hands at his sides, the way a man stands who has not, in his entire professional life, ever before stood at that doorway at 3:17, looking at the back of a car that contained a child on the list. She drives Amir to the chemist's. Saima is at the chemist's. Saima is sitting in the back office with Bushra holding her hand, with no coat, with no phone, yet with a confused, slightly far-away expression, asking Bushra what time it is. It is 3:21 when Yasmin walks Amir in, holding his hand, and Saima looks up, and her face when she sees Amir is the face of a woman who has had a thing she did not know she was about to lose handed back to her, and she says, "Amir, sweetheart, were you waiting for me?" And Amir says, "Yes, auntie, but Miss Akhtar gave me a lift, and Hina says she's coming." And Saima looks at Yasmin, and Yasmin looks at Saima, and Saima says, "Yasmin, I don't know what happened. And Yasmin says, "It's all right, Saima. He's all right. He's all right. Hina's on her way. Sit down, drink the tea. He's all right." Hina arrives at 3:31 in a taxi, in her care home uniform under her coat. She comes into the back office, and she goes straight to Amir, and she lifts him out of the chair and into her arms, and he is too big to be lifted, really. But she lifts him, and she holds him, and Yasmin stands by the door and watches her hold him, and then Hina, over her son's shoulder, looks at Yasmin, and Yasmin nods once, and Hina nods back. Once, and they do not need at that moment to speak about it, because they will speak about it later, at length, several times over the next few weeks, in Hina's kitchen, with the second button on the blue cardigan stitched back on by Yasmin while they talk. That is what happens at 3:31. Yasmin does not, in the end, ring the police. She rings the LA's safeguarding lead the next morning, before assembly, from her own kitchen, with Amir and Hina in her front room. And she rings the diocese the morning after that. She rings the local paper, which is a free paper run out of a back office in Hanley on the Friday, and she meets the journalist, a woman called Stephanie Cope, on the Saturday morning in Acosta, and she tells Stephanie everything she heard in the staff room, and Stephanie writes it down and asks careful questions and orders a second flat white. On the Monday, when Yasmin arrives at Greenfield Primary at 8:15, the gate is locked. There is a notice on it on council letterhead. The notice does not, in its language, mention 3:17, but it does mention immediate suspension of teaching duties pending an LA investigation, and it does, beneath the printed text, in a smaller handwritten line, in what is unmistakably Mr. Cartwright's handwriting, "Yasmin, please call me," and she does not call him. In the week that follows, she takes Amir to school herself, by bus, to the temporary arrangement at the church hall on Prince's Road, where Year 3 has been moved, and where a supply teacher Yasmin does not know is doing the registers, and where Amir is, every afternoon at 3:30, collected by his mother, who has changed her hours at the care home so that she can. Yasmin does not, in the end, ever stop hearing the bell. She does not hear it again in the way she heard it from the car at 3:17 on the Wednesday. She does not, she is fairly sure, hear it in the world. She hears it in the way you hear a song you knew as a child when something else triggers it, when she is at a bus stop, when she is walking past the closed school on a Sunday, when her own niece, 4 years later, the daughter of her older sister, comes home from her own school in Walsall and tells her she has been put on the late list. Yasmin, that day, on the phone in her flat in Hanley, with her niece's voice in her ear, says very calmly, "Sweetheart, put your mum on for me, please." And her sister comes on, and Yasmin says, in the voice she has practiced, in the staff toilets of a school she no longer works at, the voice that is fully professional, fully reassuring, fully unreadable, "Aisha, Listen to me. I'm going to tell you a story about a Wednesday in Stoke, and then we're going to decide what we do tomorrow morning." And her sister listens. And when Yasmin has finished, her sister, who is not a person who is easily moved, Onu, who is a hospital administrator and unsentimental, and the kind of older sister who used to tell Yasmin she was overreacting, says, "Right, right. What time is the head teacher in tomorrow?" Yasmin says, 8:15. Her sister says, "I'll be there at 8. Yasmin says, "I'll come with you." Her sister says, "Yes." And they hang up, and Yasmin sits at her kitchen table in her flat in Hanley, with the bell not ringing, and the kettle just starting to whistle behind her, and the afternoon outside her window, the flat gray of any October. And she thinks about Mr. Cartwright in his doorway, with his hands at his sides, watching the back of her car. And she thinks about Joe Pritchard in the low chair by the window. And she thinks about Helen at the kettle. And she thinks about the 40 years and the 2, and the "we do not believe they are harmed." And she thinks very clearly that she is going to Walsall in the morning, and that there will be, after Walsall, somewhere else, and after that somewhere else, because she has worked out in the 4 years since the Wednesday that the school in Stoke was not the only one, and that the practice was not local, and that the list is on a great many registers in a great many small old buildings across a great many small old towns, and that the people who manage it are mostly like Joe and Helen and Mr. Cartwright, tired, kind, and trained by the buildings they work in to confuse the management of the thing with the prevention of it. She is not herself trained for this. She has not inherited it. She is not on the list. Only she is a woman of 35 with a teaching assistant's qualifications and a niece in Walsall and a sister who, it turns out, will get in a car at 7 in the morning without asking twice, and a phone with a journalist's number saved in it, and a habit, learned from a small boy in a blue cardigan with a missing second button, of being accurate. She picks up the phone. She rings Stephanie Cope. She says, "Steph, it's Yasmin. Have you got an hour?"